All right. That meeting is called to order. Welcome to our very first in history meeting of the Texas Massage Therapy Advisory Board. Thanks so much for coming. This is a really historic moment in our field, and we thank you all and our whole field for coming, and we thank TDLR for giving us guidance. And so here we go. This is all of our first time to do this, so please have patience with us, and when in doubt, we may call upon the wise men and women over there to tell us what to do.
We've never been accused of that before, Mr. Chairman, but thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, let me certify that we have a quorum. We have all the current members present, and I think what I'll do is I'll just call out the name and have the person say their name and a 2 or 3 sentence introduction so you get some sense of who they are. And why don't we just start here from Russell Rust.
Hi, Russell Rust. I'm a school representative for the advisory board. I've been in the profession since 1994. I've been a school owner. I'm celebrating my 20th year this year. So we've worked up from the 300 hours to the 500 from the Department of State Health Services over to TDLR, and I'm very excited about us going forward in the future with this. Thank you.
Great.
I'm Karen Vasquez. I've been a massage therapist for 17 years, 8 of which have been here in Texas. So I'm here representing just a licensed massage therapist.
Hey. I'm David Lauderstein. I had my 70th birthday this past Monday, so I've suddenly transitioned into being an elder statesman. And of course, I've been involved in the field for 40 years and run my school, Lauderstein County Massage School, for almost 30 years. So it's a joy to do this. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian Francis. I appreciate you leading by example. Since the meetings are on real audio, it's important for us to get as close to the mic so that
Cool.
the recording can capture that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn. Hi, I'm Caroline Guerin. I've been a massage therapist for 11 years. I've been a school owner for almost 6, and I'm here representing massage establishments.
My name is Paul Stone. My wife Abby and I own Stone Massage in Tyler, Texas, which is in the heart of East Texas, for those of you not familiar. We opened in 2005, so we've been open a little over 12 years. We actually, in addition to our school, we operate essentially a spa which employs and contracts some of our best former therapists who work for us. And I'm actually here, although we own a school, we also are a massage therapy establishment, and that is the entity that I represent on the board. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Carol Willis, and I'm a public member. I worked for the Texas State Board of Pharmacy and the Texas Optometry Board and retired in March 2016, I think. I can't remember. Maybe it was 2015. But I have some experience with licensing.
Everybody, my name is Susan Sparks, and I'm a licensed massage therapist. I was certified in the state of Colorado for 7 years, and I've been in the state of Texas, licensed in the state of Texas for 10 years. I'm here representing licensed massage therapists, and I'm really excited about the transition with this TDLR. I think it's awesome. Thanks for coming.
Great. So I want to certify that we have a quorum. There are yet 2 positions open for a public member and for a
peace officer.
Peace officer. So that's yet to be done. But we have quorum, and we're happy to proceed. So let me just check with the board members. All had training, the Open Meetings Act, Public Information Act, and the Administrative Procedures Act. Do you all have any questions relating to those? Otherwise, we may proceed. Any questions?
None here.
Good. Okay, great. Well then, let's just proceed to public comments, and we'll ask people to come up one by one and to limit themselves to about and great. Thanks so much. Let me just in the order I received them, call up Daniel Jaramillo. Hi. Thanks, and have a seat up here, Daniel.
Good morning. So I rehearsed this with my kids last night, and it took about 5.5 minutes, and I'll try to keep it down to 3.
There's no hook here, so you're going to be all right.
Okay, good. Hi, my name is massage therapist of 15 years, instructor and education provider. I'm also been for quite some time. I went to school at San Antonio Therapeutic Body Concepts with a 300 Texas hour curriculum course. In less than a year of practicing massage therapy, I was promoted to the corporate office as their corporate lead therapist. There, I got to create all of their operations manuals, their employee manuals, their testing curriculums. I was specialized in 75 locations across the U.S. and Canada, which included a minimum of 15 therapists in those locations. Then I was kind of climbing that corporate ladder onto director of industry. There, I got to build relations, maintain relationships. AMTA, American Massage Therapy Association, the Associated Body Works for Massage Professionals, Massage Therapy Foundation, and many other industries. All of this was in an effort to recruit massage therapists to build a career with Massage Heights. Now, Massage Heights has encountered a really big speed bump when it comes to therapists. We saw a huge and we weren't quite sure what this was from. We thought it was initially from this huge growth of the massage industry and many competitors, which is great. But unfortunately, after doing some industry research in the Texas market and consulting with Texas professionals, what we ended up finding was since 2009, the Texas Department of State Health Services was in violation of the massage law, authorizing the use of MBLEX in lieu of a state examination. This is why HB 4007, the Texas Department of Licensing bill, changed the language. We as a brand have not seen any difference in the quality of massage therapy by implementing MBLEX as the state exam. The following are the potentially unintended consequences of the MBLEX exam. From a business perspective, each Massage Heights establishment here in Texas is in need on an average of 5 to 10 full-time licensed massage therapists. Each full-time licensed massage therapist produces on an average of $4,000 in revenue per month. And of course, about 8,200 massages per month. $1,000 to $4,000 in revenue per month per location. At 70 locations in the state of Texas and growing, we are losing $140,000 to $280,000 per month combined, and $1.6 to $3.36 million combined on an annual basis. In 2006, the licensure pass rate for the exam was at 82.2%. In 2007, it was at 82.3%. It was much easier to hire and career place massage therapists. In 2014, with MBLEX, license passing the examination was down to 61.4%.
10 seconds left.
63% in 2015, 61% in 2016, and 59% in 2017. My questions to this board are the following. How and why were these changes made? And no factual data that was actually provided to make this decision.
Time.
Has any metadata analysis been provided to show the impact of these changes to the Texas industry?
Let me give you another minute, Daniel.
Okay, thank you. Again, how and why were these changes made if no factual data was provided to make this decision? Have any metadata analysis been provided to show the impact of these changes and how they have impacted massage schools, massage students, massage establishments, and those seeking massage therapy? Will the Texas Department of Licensing continue to use MBLEX, knowing the massive decline that has been caused to the Texas massage industry? I have over 70 massage establishments, 1,400 licensed professionals, both pre- and post-MBLEX, and a host of students needing to know these questions so that we can better understand what the past, current, and future state of the Texas massage therapy is. Respectfully, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let me call for the second person, Raul Flores. Feel free to come on up, Raul. Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
we can take a moment to make copies so all the members can get that, and we can bring Mr. Flores up.
relevant for us to be looking at these this time?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall we
So-
just
so-
take a little break for copies?
Pamela will make it happen, and we can just bring another, we can bring next speaker up.
Oh,
Flores,
okay.
is that okay with you?
All right.
That's it.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker to call is Nicole Kosic. Is that right? Yes. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, I didn't if I want to speak, but I've been licensed since 1995. And when I came out of school, it was originally when it started in Austin, and I wasn't called. I worked for the head of the Texas Association, a chiropractor, under his licensing and his direction, and got further education. At the time, my licensing had things that I had planned for my future that now are not possible as a single parent. For example, independent licensed instructor was allowed if I wanted to take on 4 or 5 students, limited. On my own, I could, and I could teach them to get my feet wet to see if this is something I wanted to do or pursue an actual school of my own. They took that away. Independent massage instructor no longer applies. I met a girl that works at a baby store that's a parent that went to Austin School of Massage when they shut down. She is 1990 something, and she never completed school. And she's not driving all the way to other campuses. She needs individual care, and she needs the hands-on instruction. I'm not that my CE and my instructor is going to allow me to teach her those basic programs that she's missing, or anyone else, any other individual, to meet a basic need in my area where there is no school and there's people that want to learn this. Also, my original licensing said I could hire anybody I wanted and train them as a therapist and have them work under my license. It was not limited. That's an interesting one. But if I wanted to hire college students that are going for nursing or veterinary medicine, it would only make them better nurses or better veterinarians. They'd already have some anatomy and physiology. I could train them in my chair technique and send them to corporate locations where there's no risk with the table and full body and all these things. Those options are gone. I work at ECC for Alex Matthews as an instructor doing business ethics, so what you're doing is very important to me. I've also been a model, and I have found that sometimes people think that massage is something that it's not. And so for my own safety, I've had to be careful working as a therapist. Just the other day, I drove down 35 and stopped at 2 places because I've been advising my students to go on informational interviews and looking for places that they would be able to work. I felt my safety was in danger.
10 seconds.
So I'd like to see if these things can be addressed. For example, a CE license provider either being able to go ahead and teach the basic curriculum to a small group, and maybe if
Time.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I was thinking like the electrical, where they could have an apprenticeship license, where you're registered and on file
Great.
to work for someone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Terrific. All right. So let me call Nilda Tull up to speak. Nice to see you again. Hi, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Niall DeTull, and I'm with the North Texas School of Swedish Massage. And I'd like to thank the TDLR members here and also the Massage Therapy Advisory Board. I'm requesting automatic standard transfer credit based on diplomas and licensures in various specific healthcare professions, namely registered nurses, physical therapists, and athletic trainers. An automatic standard for these professions put in place would benefit each party involved. Eliminating the man-hours required to individually evaluate each transcript would be a win for the TDLR. Eliminating the need to charge these professionals the $100 evaluation fee would be a win for the student. And eliminating the need for massage schools to wait for transcript evaluations before completing a class schedule would be a win for the massage schools. I'm suggesting automatic transfer credit because these healthcare professions have already completed coursework that meets and or exceeds various requirements in the massage therapy curriculum. In addition, I ask, what is the expected turnaround time for transcript evaluations? What is the contact information for the department responsible for evaluating transcripts? And is there an individual named in that department that's going to do this procedure? And if standard automatic transfer credit based on diploma and licensure is not adopted, what type of consistency can TDLR provide so that uniform credit is given? In closing, I give you this example. An athletic trainer or a medical doctor is the only professional who can give consent for a player with a potential concussion to re-enter the field of play. Why in the world would an athletic trainer, already an authority and licensed to make this type of call, be required to take pathology at a massage school? I ask that the Massage Therapy Advisory Board ask TDLR to come up with standard automatic transfer credits based on diploma and licensure, and let the $100 fee apply to students who are not licensed healthcare providers. Thank you very much.
That was perfect timing.
Very
It's not
clear.
a competition, but I just want to say she nailed it.
Good job, Nalda.
We're taking bets in the back.
We got some bookies, we got numbers.
That's cute.
Great. Now, we all have copies of what was given to us by Mr. Flores. Rowe, would you please come up?
Thank you.
Sure.
First, I want to say thank you to all the board members for your commitment to this. I know it's not a paid position, so your time, your effort, having to trek to Austin is a great sacrifice to you all, and we appreciate that very much. I want to start briefly just with a statement that you guys don't have. This is from the TDLR website, and when I read this, I was very excited in one sense, but it caused me to have some questions also. The department administers examinations to ensure applicants have the necessary knowledge to demonstrate minimal competency. Without these examinations, Texas citizens could not be assured that the licensees they use are qualified. A primary goal of the division is to oversee the development and administration of examinations. There were almost 62,000 examinations administered during fiscal year 2016. To accomplish this goal, division staff members work with single third-party vendor, PSI, and Texas industry experts to develop the content and maintain the reliability and validity of examinations. Examinations are constantly evolving due to the changing nature of their corresponding occupations. These industries are governed by state laws and national codes that are updated on an ongoing basis. As changes occur, examination content is reviewed to ensure that examination TDLR board members, subject matter licensing up. I know that that has been the practice with the TDLR. My questions to the board, and obviously not looking for answers today, but I believe they are questions, and that's the first page of the handout that I gave you. Question 1, how does the TDLR verify that the content of the IMBLEX ensures minimum competency in the practice of massage therapy in Texas? How does TDLR oversee the development and administration of the IMBLEX? Which Texas massage industry experts is the TDLR working with to develop the content and maintain the reliability and validity of examinations? When was the last time the IMBLEX content was reviewed by the TDLR, and I would add, or by any state agency, to ensure the exam content is current and pertinent to Texas massage therapy candidates? And just of note, I see that examination results for cosmetology and other programs administered by the TDLR are posted on the TDLR website for public view. Where on the TDLR website may one be able to view the results of massage therapy exam candidates? I think all of the other professions that are regulated by the TDLR are given or afforded these opportunities, and I know that part of the agenda today is to discuss possible appointments to the examinations work group, and I hope that we can get those questions answered once that work group is formed to ensure that Texans are protected. Daniel stole some of my thunder with respect to jobs and so forth, so I provided for you a number of charts. I want to go, okay, we're going to start with the first page where we had 2,027 people pass the state exam when there was a state exam out of 2,300. Ergo,
Time.
2017, the last one, the last page, and that number was reduced to
Raul?
just over 1,100.
As I gave
And I'm gonna
Daniel
wrap
an
up.
extra minute. Go ahead, take one more minute.
Oh, okay, thanks. I appreciate it. If we look at the pass rates on the IMBLEX, we see a drastic decline in not only the number of people passing the exam, but it steadily has declined year after year to the lowest level that it's been ever, at 59.1% statewide. And what that amounts to is thousands of jobs lost, to the tune of potentially $250 to $300 million in lost earnings for people who are otherwise qualified but cannot pass the IMBLEX exam. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you.
All right.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks for public comments. And we're going to move to the staff report. That'd be great.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis, Executive Director with TDLR. And again, I'd like to welcome the board. Thank you guys for volunteering and being a part of this. I also want to thank everyone that's in attendance. It's so important to recognize that this is a contact sport. It's interactive in making sure that the voices are heard and everyone has an opportunity to speak and really provide their perspective. I think we've heard from the public comment, and we probably already knew, there's a lot of work we have to do. There's a whole lot of nuances to this massage industry and the program that we're learning. The history is important. There's no question about that. But the future is what we're going to be focused on. There's a lot of things that happened in the massage program that probably happened before I was born. It's not true. It was a long time ago. But we're not going to apologize for those, and we're not going to take ownership of those things. But we will take ownership of what we're moving forward with. And we do recognize there's some stuff to do. I can promise you it will not all be done by tomorrow. We're hard workers, but we're not going to fix every challenge that we're facing. But we're going to prioritize those things and start chipping away and building a better program, and then obviously building the best program that we can have for any state out there in the U.S. So that's our goal, is to just be the best, to be the very best at it. Great questions, great presentations. Is it Nielda? Wow. You hit one of the things right on the nose in terms of the transcript evaluation process. It is voluminous, it is manual, and it is slow. And we have to find some ways to speed that up. And I think you offered some ideas for us to consider. So thank you so much for that. Our numbers man that came up there first, great stuff. Raul, as always, expecting to hear a lot from you guys. I've told my staff, and they know, that the word Imblix is going to be something we're going to be talking about for a long time. I can't remember the speaker that talked about House Bill 4007 modifying the statute. It was modified to allow us the opportunity to be flexible. And whether we're going to stick with the Imblix, I can tell you right now we will today, because it's there. There's nothing to replace it right now. Will we have two examinations, a state exam and an Imblix? That's a possibility. Will we have a state examination? That's a possibility. And now our statute's set up to allow us to be nimble and to be flexible and go in the direction that we think is best for the state of Texas and best for the folks that are going to be getting the licenses and going through the process. So we're set up now to be as smart as we want to be. And you guys are going to help us be smart as we journey down this process. So I'm excited about that. The board is not endowed with all the answers and wisdom and knowledge. They are volunteers that have come here to give of their time. And there's a lot of questions that they won't be able to answer because they don't know what's under the machine, what's taking place or TDLR. And frankly, we don't know everything that's going on either. It's been a month and a couple of days that we've had the program. Yes, we've evaluated the statutes. Yes, we've looked at the forms. But in terms of really understanding how a program works, you have to be with it for a little while. It's a relationship. And, we're going to keep holding the doors open, and we're going to keep, paying for the meals. But at some point, the relationship's going to get real. And we're going to figure out how this thing's going to work in the long run. So I'm excited about that. I do believe that there is significant upside. We can pick up where the Department of State Health Services left off and really build on what they gave to us, and I'm excited about that. But it's going to be a lot of sleeve rolling, and I think it's fair to say that on most issues, we will have a great amount of disagreement. And that's okay. It's okay. One of the books I've read probably a couple years ago said that innovation and creativity comes from folks that are disagreeable. They said that folks that have dyslexia, that's one of their biggest gifts, is that they had to unlearn the way that they learn, and that makes them disagreeable. And when you have disagreeable people, you have chance for change. When you have everyone who's in agreement, nothing changes. It all stays the same. So the disagreeability of this program and all the issues that it's facing, it's welcomed. It's absolutely welcomed, and we're going to take full advantage of it. You have the back row of listening ears with our staff and compliance and education and examination, our general counsel's there. Enforcement typically sits on the front row because they like to be close to the action. Just one row. They want to be quicker to get on people. We have licensing, and then the folks over here, we're all here, and we're going to be here. We ain't going nowhere. So we're going to learn the program. We're going to have some fun with it. Mr. Chairman, I think you are aware that the TDLR family suffered an incredible loss on October 31st. Our Director of Compliance, George Ferry, a longtime cornerstone of our organization, passed away. We had an amazing celebration for him yesterday at the Capitol. But under recent developments, I'd like to take the opportunity, if it's okay, just to have a moment of silence in honor of George Ferry.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There was a video played during his ceremony that should encapsulate everything that George Ferry is. All these great images, our eyes are soaked with tears, and then just in the middle of a video, hopefully there's some Monty Python fans in here, it just screamed out and said, "Bring me a shrubbery," just out of the middle, and that was George. He had that approach and that attitude, and one thing that we will do is we'll continue to honor his kindness, his intellect, and his willingness to listen as we move forward in the process. During the summit, we talked a little bit about how the agency operates, the executive office. We are comprised of myself, the Deputy Executive Director, Carla James, our Chief of Staff, Nick Boenis. Underneath our watch, we have the Contact Center, which is a very important part for the agency, and it's going to be an important part for your group. I know that there have been challenges in the past of getting phone calls answered timely and emails answered timely. Our contact center does a fantastic job of being responsive, being available, and being informed. And they also operate our Facebook page. We also have the advisory board support team, and I know the members saw them in action during the summit. Tamala is your lifeline. She's your lifeline to all things TDLR. If you have questions and you've got a concern about what happened at a meeting, you're curious about how we do a certain process, ask Tamala. She's going to get that information to the person. She's going to get it back to you. She's your lifeline to the agency. She knows significantly more than all of us know together. She's the one that's going to make it happen. All the pressure's on her shoulders. She's our resident atlas. She can handle it, right? All right, we're going to go with that. Also under exec, we have our Office of Innovation, which is unique for a state agency. I think it's important for the folks out here to hear that TDLR, it's not about just having the very best process today, but we're also looking for what we call the next practices. You always hear people say, oh, what's best practices, and we identify those. So we're going to go look at other states, how they do things, and we'll grab that, look at their business, and how they around it, and pick something from that. Also focus on skipping into ideas and get to the one that's the right going to look like. And I think in the some wonderful opportunities for that. Again, there's a lot of manual process. We're going to the of massage. And also separate this folks from focal point on what we move forward with. And then touch on this viewing they've had, so we can start learning that process. And get a different mix of what you have available. Part of that is going to be to be those groups. Questions and wrestling. You believe that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's like, why? You and it should be messy. Have an idea. All of a sudden, you think they're going to just blend. That's the stormy part. That's the magic. And then you have form. We don't expect you to just day one on the road this month in strategic planning process. I'm really looking forward to that coming out. But at that we'll turn it over to any questions.
Any questions? I would recommend for implementation. I can't talk today. Since they've taken over for the program, I have inundated them with questions, things that have come to me, and everything that I have sent to them has been answered within a reasonable amount of time. And I was sent to each department that was responsible for the question that I had, and so far I've been very satisfied with the responses that I've received back in the timely manner that I've received them in. Thank you.
Russ, thank you very much. Russ he has me on speed dial, and I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure of that moment. But my IT person has talked about expanding the storage for my email to accommodate the amount of commerce. But it's been good. It's been very educational. I see faces, Carolyn, and folks that have been to every meeting, Colette, that have been to every meeting that we've had involving this program for the last 2 years. And I'm grateful, one, for your continued presence, and I expect you guys to keep wrestling with us and pushing us and making us be better than what we can be. So I thank them. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other comment or
Wait, I
question?
think Scott.
I want to make one comment to you. Just want to kind of.
I'm sorry, who are you, sir?
I'm Nick Voinas, TDLR. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about our website and ways of communicating with us, and just wanted to share some numbers with you. Over the first 30 days, your website generated 25,757 page views. That's pretty darn good, and that's an average of about 859 a day. We constantly look at our website to try to make it better. We want to make it fresher. We want to make it informative. We want to make it more user-friendly. So any feedback you guys have, we are very open to your comments and feedback. Most of your visitors access the site through a desktop computer, if you'd like to know, 56%. 38% did so in the first 30 days on a smartphone, 6% from a tablet. And the top reasons for visiting the site: laws and rules, number 1, followed by applications and forms, exam and C, FA, therapy, school, and social media, Facebook, and Twitter. If you'd like to follow us, events and do that. Thank you.
Remind people here that are limited to the board. Everybody is encouraged to contact them and to register their website to receive up. Very open and much.
Mr. Chair, question. Russ, see, is there no ability for to be able to be able to publication? Is that something that y'all, or is that something?
It's something that will be. Is that unfortunately where people are getting that information. Here's the that's to the person's name and their information. You don't have to put it on the web page. We're working on some systems, and we've got to we're able to search per city and make a county, but for the schools and the creating an expedited process in our IT. They're going to get the data that our so we're working on that. We are modifying and tweaking. Easy for people to find in person.
All right.
Thank you. All right. I believe that we compliance to have here veterans from the Texas Department of Services working with TDLR.
Thank you. This faces even faces even Mills, health professions manager.
I'm Yvonne, specialist in the compliance.
We're very pleased to be here at TDA. And so we're happy to continue. First about the division. Some of this will be from the board. Divided into three sections: business and building, and medical and health professions. Falls within the medical, which contain 13 programs that came from behavioral and I'm the team of 7. Duties primarily include providing subject internal and external coordination, regulatory requirements, and research across the state and the nation. With our divisions here at TDLR, primarily enforcement, licensing, education and examinations, and general counsel regarding a lot of the technical matters and complex inquiries that I was mentioning. We create an informational newsletter that goes out quarterly for the medical and health professions, and if you're signed up on our email subscription list, you should have received one right around the 1st of November, 31st of October, something like that. We provide internal training on a monthly basis for our customer service and licensing staff to teach and reinforce the various requirements of the law and rules as they relate to frequently asked questions and frequently utilized licensing processes and transactions. And so we have ongoing discussions and contact with those folks aimed toward helping them do their jobs better and improving the final product that our customers receive from them. We also do a lot of presentations at stakeholder conferences and meetings. In FY17 across our division, staff conducted over 254 presentations and training sessions and hosted booths at a variety of trade shows, conventions, and seminars. And that's a very important part of what we do, that outreach. At every meeting, you'll receive a report from the Compliance Division, and it will typically be presented by Yvonne or by me or perhaps both of us. That report will include personnel updates, if there are any, public outreach activities that we've engaged in since your last meeting, any ongoing projects that we're engaged in that are relevant to your program, and then any statistics that might apply to our discussions with your program. That's a brief overview of the Compliance Division. Any questions or comments about what we do here in compliance? Okay, yes.
I just want to remind myself, so what is the distinction between what you do and what Yvonne does?
So I manage the section that works with the 15 medical and health professions programs, and I lead a team of specialists, of which Yvonne is one. Each specialist is assigned to anywhere from 1 to 5 programs, depending on their size and complexity. And then each specialist also serves as a secondary contact for programs.
Great. Thanks so much.
Hi, Yvonne Feinleib. So I have 5 programs. Massage therapy is the most recent. I have 4 of the Phase 1 DSHS programs that came over: midwives, orthotics and prosthetics, dyslexia, and dietitians. And obviously, I am not all those professions, so I work with subject area experts, including members of the advisory boards, to get the work done that we need to get done in compliance. So I'm going to present a little bit on the history and overview of the massage therapy program, but having listened to your experience and background, I have less than all of you. So I would just like to present as an overview that this licensing program has been around since the 80s. It's gone through a number of transitions while it was at the Health Department, Texas Department of Health, Department of State Health Services, in its various incarnations. And most of the time it was there, it did not have any form of an advisory board, and the program was run as an director and various agency staff providing the support. Changes ranging from the term massage therapist to the term massage therapist, from 300 to 500. Although to get the program massage school September 1st of 2007. Still available for people who used to be licensed, but they're licensed. Changes in terms of how the program has been operated, the procedures. And I think you'll see here at TDLR, we're very interested in doing things better. We're interested in being more efficient. We're interested in providing better customer service. We're interested in processing applications more quickly. And you're going to need to give us a little bit of time, obviously, because we just got this program. We're still learning. We have the same database. We have the same online system. But we are willing to listen to feedback and ideas and look at what would be best and develop changes over time and work with you. You're going to know what's going on. You're going to be involved in rules. You're going to be working on these work groups where you get to talk with us and with our attorneys and figure out what is possible with the existing law, what is just a rule change, what could be done with a procedure and doesn't even need a rule change. So please, look forward to your work group meetings as a chance to learn, for us to learn about you in the profession, and then to make some changes that you would like to see. In terms of the history and overview, I agree with Brian. I think we need to go forward. So if you have any questions about the way we're doing things, call and ask us, but don't assume that we're stuck on doing it that way forever. And I mean, the transcript evaluation process is a really good example of that. At DSHS, they had a form. There was no fee. People had to send their transcript in and wait until that form came back. Here at TDLR, what we decided to do was have the person apply for a license using the regular process. So they do pay the regular application fee. However, that application and fee are good for a year. So if they take their transcript evaluation, get their education, submit their additional transcript, they're going to get licensed with that same fee. It's not an additional fee. It only ends up being a cost to them if they choose not to complete those hours and complete their application to become licensed. But we assume that's why they're wanting their transcript evaluated, because they do want to become licensed. And that application should work for them. One of the reasons we did that, and if licensing is unhappy that I'm stealing their thunder, I'm just going to talk about it anyway, because I know it's come up, and that is that the regular licensing process is very timely here at TDLR. Applications are processed quickly, and you either get a license or you get a letter which is called an RFI, or request for information, which is the same as what used to be called a deficiency notice at DSHS. And that letter stating you lack these hours is what the person will use as their transcript evaluation. And those will get done very quickly in the regular flow of work, just like any other application. So there's not going to be a separate transcript evaluation process that gets set on the side if people get burdened with applications. We keep up with applications. So that's just an example. That doesn't have to be the process forever, okay? But just that's a good example of how we want to adjust to what would meet the needs of the licensed population. So I've kind of gotten off the topic of the overview of the massage therapy program there. I think Stephen's going to do the update on the transition.
Thank you, Yvonne. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about how TDLR approached the transition of this program as well as the other programs from DSHS. A little bit of history. Senate Bill 202 was passed in the 2015 legislative session. It transferred 13 programs from the Department of State Health Services to TDLR. It transferred those programs in 2 phases. 7 programs were in Phase 1, 6 programs in Phase 2. The 7 programs in Phase 1 were dietitians, dyslexia therapists, orthotists and prosthetists, midwives, athletic trainers, speech-language pathologists and audiologists, and hearing instrument fitters and dispensers. Those groups came to us October 1st, 2016. Phase 2, massage therapists, sanitarians, code enforcement officers, mold assessors and remediators, laser hair removal, and offender education programs. And those 6 programs, as you know, came just recently on November 1st. TDLR began the planning process for all of this in the summer of 2015 in collaboration with key staff from DSHS. And I was involved actually in that planning sort of from the beginning, from the DSHS side, came to TDLR in June of 2016. The transition of these programs, because it's such a large transition, we knew it had to be approached in a very orderly and structured fashion. TDLR and DSHS adopted a transition that described various activities that would take place with responsible parties and due dates through both phases. On the side, we formed a team that was in charge of planning and monitoring and troubleshooting all aspects of each phase of the transition. This team included DSHS staff from the beginning, and then when we got to Phase 2, we actually expanded the participation of DSHS because we realized we needed some broader representation from different areas. The team met weekly. On the TDLR side, the team was made up of staff from each of our functional areas: compliance, licensing, general counsel, enforcement, customer service, and more, so that everyone who was going to have a hand in the administration of these programs was at the table, was representing their function, and was working collaboratively. The overall goal that we set out was to bring the programs over as they operated at DSHS as much as possible so that we could minimize disruption at the time of transition. So the idea was get the programs here, make sure they're running as much as they were as possible at DSHS, and then look to the future for improvements and modifications. We began a series of stakeholder meetings back in January. I think many of you were there. At the January meeting, we introduced everyone to TDLR. We gave a lot of the same information that you received at your advisory board summit. We talked about our approach to transition and what we thought it would look like and what it had looked like for Phase 1. We held a second meeting in March, and we talked at that time about draft rules. Everyone had an opportunity to see where we were going with our initial rule set. And Colleen's going to talk more about that later. There was a public hearing on those rules, as you know, in May of 2017. Our team continued its work through the summer and really got down into the nitty-gritty of evaluating, for example, all the forms and publications that were in use on the DSHS side, deciding whether we needed them, deciding whether they needed revision, what those revisions would look like, comparing those forms and publications to the rules that we knew would be going in effect here at TDLR. Same for web content. We looked at all the DSHS web content. We evaluated it for its appropriateness in our new setting. We wrote new content, and we constructed new web pages. We knew that November 1st was going to be a very important day for us. That was our go live day. We knew that certain things had to happen at 8 o'clock on the morning of November 1st. And so we had a lot of contingency plans in place to make sure those things happen. And those things were customer service. We knew we had to answer the phone and respond to people's questions. Licensing, we knew we had to be able to renew licenses and issue new licenses using our online services and the traditional methods. We knew we had to be able to intake consumer complaints. And we knew that our online functions for public license search and verification had to be operational. I'm pleased to report that all of those things were operational at 8 a.m. on November 1st. In fact, our first customer for our online licensing function here at TDLR was a massage therapist, and that individual applied for a license at 7:15 a.m. on November 1st.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Their transaction was successful, their payment was appropriately processed, and so was their licensure transaction. And we were very relieved and pleased that that worked out that way. During the go-live time for the first 3 business days, we established a monitoring headquarters that was staffed by key members of our team. And in the headquarters, we received regular reports from what was going on in all the different divisions. Any concerns or issues were bubbled up to us for resolution. Members of our medical and health professions team were assigned to different areas to serve as resources, to provide real-time training and assistance, and Yvonne was in customer service for those 3 days, helping people answer the questions that were coming in.
Mr. Chairman, I was so excited about the command center stuff. I mean, we could watch the phone calls, the emails by the moment, and being able to resolve stuff. And the staff did a great job. Obviously, the contact center group was involved in licensing, and everybody pitched in. They were resolving specific licensing issues. If there was some glitch on technology, someone couldn't get their online license process, this group was working with our IT group, which was Johnny or Joan on the spot, knocking it out. So it was really, really exciting stuff because I'm a nerd for stuff like that.
It was great. Thank you, Brian. And ultimately, it was very successful. After the first 3 days, we did disband the monitoring headquarters due to the success of the transition. We were prepared to continue that indefinitely as long as it was necessary. The big thing that happened really in the first couple of weeks, as you know, I think you know, on the DSHS side, their systems had to come down for about a week and a half prior to transition so that we could have a clean exchange of data. That meant that any backlog that they had not been addressed, and then any new licensing transactions that came into them had not been addressed prior to 11/1. We had an actual physical handoff of boxes of information that we knew we needed to get started on first thing. And so our staff was involved in that, and that was prioritized for the first couple of weeks. Program monitoring continues. We're still in a very important early phase of this transition, and we are looking at all the functions and communicating with our team and across our agency to make sure that things are still going well. overall, even though there were, obviously some people that had some very specific things that needed to be addressed, overall there was minimal disruption to the normal operation of the program. So I wanted to give you an idea of the organized fashion in which we approach this transition. There's over 30,000 license holders in this program, and we knew that if we didn't do it right, there could be a large number of people that could potentially be negatively impacted. And so I wanted to share that detailed information with you about how we approach it. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear any comments you might have about that.
Thank you so much for your work and for your report. Any questions or comments?
I'd just like to make one comment, Susan Sparks. You guys have done an amazing job. It's just the flow has been so great to incorporate from that transition. Has just been, you guys have done an awesome job.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to commend Stephen. He led the transition team, and again, there's a lot of moving parts. Every division and function was involved in it, but he's a maestro. And he runs a tough meeting. He shuts me down in the meetings. And he's just, every little thing on that agenda, and they were meeting weekly since October 3rd of last year, getting ready for this transition. Every detail, every specific form, talking about which changes, and he just did a fantastic job. I'm super proud to be to work with them. Mr. Chairman, I want to touch on a few things. I saw some of the folks in the audience. Nyelda was like, I want to ask the question. And you're going to be able to, after the meeting, our staff's going to stick around. And so we'll probably have our education examination group back here in the corner if you got questions you want to talk to them about. We'll have licensing over here. So if there's any questions that folks in the audience want to touch on, we'll have enforcement right where Christina's at. Raise your hand, Christina, because you don't play. I don't even ask her to, I don't ask Christina to move. Christina, where you want to sit, that's where you're at. I'm afraid of enforcement. We'll have compliance over in the corner there. And then there was one more group. Who else? Licensing. Did I say licensing already? Oh, and field ops. And field operations right there back with Tanya. Field operations, I don't want to steal their thunder, but they do inspections. I stole their thunder. That's their whole report right there. The other thing to keep in mind about compliance is that they are willing and available to go to association meetings and conferences. So not just, you don't have to wait, we have the one big conference and there's a big bowl of chili that everyone's going to have at the end of the meeting. No, they'll do chapter meetings. We want to be engaged on the front end. There's a lot of questions your members are going to have, and we want to be present. And compliance does that for us. Also, Stephen, I was whispering back here, so I don't know if you mentioned, did you mention the health monitor?
Yes, I didn't mention the name, thank you.
Okay.
Health Monitor is the name of our newsletter, and the first issue came out either on October 31st or November 1st. I can't remember which day it was. And you should be receiving it quarterly, and if you're signed up on our email subscription list, you will receive that.
Great. Could I just ask, with public outreach, does that include outside of Texas, or is it to events and conferences, et cetera, just within the state?
That is typically our state conferences and association meetings.
Cool. Just
Yes.
wanted to know.
And
Thanks.
actually, I think Yvonne was going to share a bit of information about that now.
Sorry.
So we have the public outreach section of our Compliance Division staff report. And so you can see that we had staff giving a presentation at the AMTA Texas chapter annual conference in Waco on March 31st in 2017. And we plan to be available to provide a presentation at the AMTA Texas chapter annual conference in League City on April 5th to 7th, 2018. We don't have an exact date or time. We normally send a bunch of people, and we have a booth also, so we can answer questions and help people with specific issues one-on-one. We want to be out there hearing what are the issues, what's going on, what changes would you like to see. So please feel free to invite compliance staff or any of our staff to come out if you have a meeting and you'd like us to speak on a particular topic or provide you with information on a particular topic. That's part of what we're here for. is to be in communication. You know that we have a work group will be later in this agenda and a group, and we already have some issues that we think are worth discussing, and of course you'll want to raise any issues that you have, and those are a real opportunity to not just talk about what is going on and what you want to see going on in practice in the way the profession is regulated and the way it functions, but also for our staff to learn from you. Those discussions are really valuable. In my other programs that have clinical, it's been tremendously valuable for all the TDLR staff at the table, to advisory board members, what's important to them, what these are, what they're not those rules, or whether it's some required statute change, huge opportunity to having those meetings.
I'd just like to add that I really appreciate all of y'all being present. I look forward to working with each of you.
Same here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, call me if you need it.
Mr. Chairman, Nick Voinis, TDLR. While we anxiously await Ray Pizarro and his education and examination report, I'd like to point out and recognize Miss Linda Connor, who's here today. She is the presiding officer of our barbering board, and she's here to lend support, and just wanted to point that out. And Ms. Connor, why don't you stand up, wave at everybody. Thank you for being here.
She's one of my guardian angels. She sent me an email this morning. Good luck. Thank you so much. And now let's call upon the education and examination. Mr. Pizarro.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Ray Pizarro, Director for the Education Examination Division. So, welcome, first meeting. We're going to have a lot of commerce. You'll see me a lot. We'll talk a lot. You'll visit with my group a lot. Because our division, we oversee and develop CE, continuing education. We also look at and approve courses, curriculum for pre-education schools that require a pre-education. We look at those. And we have we have three different sections, one called the Education and School Services. They look at basically all of the curriculum and CE, and they answer over 1,000 emails a month. So we get a lot of different emails from schools, from continuing education providers, from licensees as well. We administer also over 60,000 exams a year, and that's about that comes from 16 different programs that TDLR regulates that has a state exam component. Those examinations are owned by TDLR, and so you heard comments before about MBLEX, things like that. We own the state exams that we administer, and those are done through a third-party vendor. So we have the opportunity to look at those examination questions, look at the changes on what needs to be updated, and you'll hear from me in the future requesting subject matter experts if we do look at a state exam or have a state exam, as Brian was mentioning. If that does turn to be that way, that there will be a state exam for massage therapy, then you'll hear from us stating, let's get some people together and we'll work with the third-party vendor to make that happen. We have another section also called the driver education section. Some of you may be caught speeding and you have to take a course. Well, maybe I'm the only one. So we look at those curriculums and the providers. And we also look at the curriculums and the providers for the offender program as well. That group does that. And you'll hear from Tanya that she'll be doing inspections. But our division also does inspections, but we only focus on the school inspections. So any program that has a school component, such as barber, cosmetology, driver education schools, and now massage therapy schools, we will be doing those inspections on site. Now, there will be some, you'll hear already, and it's on the agenda about the work groups, and they'll be assigning work groups. I expect that both the field operations work group and the education work group may have some commerce going together at the same time because of the inspections. There are some schools that has an establishment tied to it. So we need to talk about how those inspections are going to be done and who's going to be doing it. Is it my team or is it a combination of Tanya's team? It doesn't make sense people going there at the same time, leave, somebody else comes in. So we'll have a conversation on how that goes. So we'll touch on that later. You'll be getting from us, and not necessarily myself, but one of my staff doing the reports for the massage therapy. You'll hear updates from us from any program change or any statistics that we have. Right now, there's 54 schools that we're regulating. You'll hear those updates. You'll hear things like currently our team applications of school applications that we receive from DSHS. We're trying to vet those and restart the fire. Some of them were sent in, they've had them since 2015. So we've reached out to those schools and say, hey, look, we don't need to pay another fee, but we need some updated information. So we're working with those folks to try to get that done. The forms are out there, the new school applications. We are working on location and so that will be, it's going to come and you'll hear us talk about what we have. And this is for anyone, you can sign up to our website to sign up. This is, you can click on those buttons. The newsletter will have different pieces of all the touch, so you'll hear news from barbering, technology world, the massage world, that kind of thing. Right now, I want to until 4 o'clock, but that's all I have. The back wall. If those folks have questions or want to talk about whatever you want to talk about, we'll be happy to answer your questions if we can.
Mr. Chair,
Any
I
questions?
do have one question, please.
Yes.
Your name?
Thank you, Russell Rust. In the process of us implementing or moving over to TDLR as an educational facility, all our documentation had to be changed. We had to swap out everything over to TDLR. We're submitted because we've always kept those on file with the state of our catalog, our enrollment agreements, so that y'all would have that handy. What department would that actually be submitted to now that we've made the changes, significant changes? I didn't realize how many Department of State Health Services actually in the documentation.
You're talking documentation school?
It's our enrollment agreements, catalogs, all the information we've always submitted to the Department of State Health Services so they get on hand for the educational programs. As I say, it's taken since November 1st for me to find all the corrections that needed to be made, the updates of websites, phone numbers, some language in the statutes have changed somewhat. So are we submitting those to
offline, but you to us, but we need to have this done when we have these work required. This has happened with other programs that have come over. Some of the license holder have a certification or a license that says Texas Department of State Health Services. Oh, do I need a new license? Well, no. It's that license still active. You're going to be able to keep it until you renew. So we're not going to hammer a school because they have documentation that's referencing the predecessor agency. I think we will get there and make those changes together. We're not out to say, gotcha,
well,
Russell.
I guess my question was, I've made the changes.
Sure.
Do I need to submit those?
Let's look at what you have, because I'm not familiar with the documentations you're talking about.
Okay.
So let's look at that and see if we really need it. I have stacks of papers that we're not going to do anything with. You know what I mean?
I brought it with me.
Okay, perfect.
There you go.
Any other questions?
Good question. Thank you so much. All right. Now we're going to hear from the Enforcement Division. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm Christina Kaiser. I'm the Enforcement Division Director at TDLR. Welcome to TDLR, and we look forward to working with all of you and learning a lot from you. In your Enforcement Division report, in your material, but just to give you a refresher, enforcement is the division that's responsible for and resolving complaints against all different investigators, prosecutors, as it moves through its life cycle. The division is organized into 3 groups: intake, investigations, and prosecution, and those are essentially the 3 stages of a complaint. Intake essentially reviews a complaint and determines if is there enough information there to justify and cranking up the whole enforcement process. If we determine a case should be open, it is a investigator who interviews parties involved, gather document evidence, witness if one is needed. Every case gets resolved, and the prosecutors have a wide range of resolutions at their disposal. We can, of course, pursue formal enforcement action in the form of penalties or sanctions upon license. We also have are available, and actually the majority of the include that the incident of approval. Obviously, we're not trying to chase evidence is not there to support whatever was alleged. Informally resolved is something that we see a lot. If there's a consumer complaint and the respondent, the person the case was filed against, action to put the consumer back in a good place, and the consumer is satisfied, then, you know, if there's not a long history of violations by that respondent, we will close that case as informally resolved and move on to the next one, because there's always going to be a next one. There are 104 of us total in the Enforcement Division, and we investigate and resolve about 12,000 cases a year. So you can see we have a lot going on. In your material, also a little bit of information about the sources of complaints that the enforcement receives, and I like to talk about 3 broad categories: consumer complaints, department complaints, and criminal history complaints. The consumer complaints, in my way of speaking, represents complaints that come from sources outside. Largely that does consumers of the service or profession we're talking. That can include complaints from one person in the industry complaining against another. It can also include complaints from other governmental agencies. Perhaps a city of San Antonio discovers a violation and files the complaint with TDLR. So anything that's from the outside. That represents 33%, about a third of everything that we do in the Enforcement Division. The biggest category are departmental complaints, and these are complaints that arise from inspections that are conducted by the Field Operations Division and the Education and Examinations Division, who you just heard from. So in some, not all, but in some of the programs regulated by TDLR, the law requires a periodic, recurring type of inspection. And so when those inspections reveal violations that we have agreed are serious enough to warrant formal enforcement action, then those are forwarded to the Enforcement Division. Not every single inspection that is found is going to be forwarded to enforcement. But we work out agreements between ourselves and field operations with the input of all, divisions, including compliance and who has an opinion. And about from inspections will be forwarded to us. But overall, that represents 40% of everything that we do in enforcement. The third category are criminal history cases. These cases arise from someone who applies for a license and their criminal history or their criminal history background check reveals convictions or deferred adjudications that are the basis for denying someone a those are referred to us from the licensing division, of course. So on agenda item H today, one of the things you're going to be asked to do is create some work groups. And one of those work groups is going to be an enforcement work group. And we are looking very forward to that. We have some important business that we need to have the advisory board help us with. For every program regulated by TDLR, we have certain published policy documents that reflect kind of our philosophy about enforcement in those programs. We have a criminal conviction guidelines, which crimes that may be for denying someone a license, and actually statute certain categories of crimes that are absolutely a basis for denying someone a license, so those will of course be included. But that's something that we will want to work with the enforcement work group, because we have our best guesses about what crimes are most directly related to your profession, but of course we need the guidance of folks in the profession who know about it better than us. Similarly, we also will seek the work group's assistance with the enforcement plan. The enforcement plan is for the traditional consumer-type complaints and even for the violations that arise in inspections. The enforcement plan essentially classifies any violation that can occur under the statute or rules. The enforcement plan classifies those violations according to how serious they are. And so we'll have 4 or 5 or 6 maybe different classes of violations that go from the least serious all the way up to the most serious. And then for each class, we establish a range of penalty or license sanction that the person will be subject to if they commit a violation in that class. 2 very important things that we will need your help with. Forward to getting those work groups going. The last page in division materials reflects some statistics. That pie chart in the middle is what I was speaking of a moment ago, the 3 big sources of complaints. The other numbers there, the ones at the top are basic performance measures. These are the formal ones that we report to the Legislative Budget Board and to the legislature on a quarterly basis. A couple of those I've already mentioned. Cases open and cases closed, you see those are both in the 12,000 range. This is for fiscal year 2017. A number here that we're very proud of and that we give a lot of attention to is the average time to close cases. You'll see that for last year it was at 142 days. We're very proud of that, and we put a lot of time and energy into, execution. Let's not start something and then wait 3 years to finish it. It's very important to pursue a case if you're gonna while it's fresh. So the numbers at the bottom represent some of the outcomes of enforcement cases that were closed in fiscal year 2017. I will commend those to your reading. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any complaints that you may have, or any complaints, any questions that you may have. You see the business I'm in.
Caroline?
Question. Is the application, I'm Caroline Guerin. Is the application still online to file?
A complaint?
Against someone, a complaint
Yes,
to- okay,
yes,
it
it's
is
online
okay.
in all of our programs.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right,
All
thank
right.
you very much. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we'll have field operations. Great.
Good morning. I am Tanya Guthrow. I am the Director of the Field Operations Division. As Brian said, we do inspections. And I'm happy to hear everybody kind of make that distinction between the inspections that exams in education do for schools versus the ones we do for establishments. In our report, we've got sort of a recap of some information you've already seen in the Advisory Board Summit. We have our organizational chart, and you can see that we have got 3 regions and all of the inspectors who are allocated under each of the different regions. I'm excited today to acknowledge one of my field operation managers is here today, Cam Tu Tran, just right over here. I'm excited by that because most of the time, all of my staff are out in the field all of the time. So I'm excited that someone's here with me today. The next document you'll see before you is a breakdown of where all the different inspectors are located. And the important point about this is that we have people strategically located where most of the work is, but the other thing that we do is cross-train our inspectors so that we can be more efficient and get more inspections done. For instance, we have our one inspector, David Hell in Amarillo, who does a great job, but we can't afford to have, 8 different inspectors in Amarillo for all the different programs we perform inspections. So he's got to learn and understand and be able to perform a variety of inspections. Again, we have our division overview, the kinds of things that we do. You can see that we have all the different programs that we perform inspections on. One important aspect to that is that we don't have all of the inspectors do all of the inspections. If the population is very small, then we just train a few inspectors to perform those inspections. For instance, our licensed dog and cat breeders, we have just over 200, licensees, so it doesn't really, make sense to train all 31 inspectors on how to do that. And then we have the summary of the staff report, but following that, you'll see a more realistic version of the kind of report that you'll see from us. We would, provide information to you on any sort of technology that we're using and trying to update. I will say that we are working on a mobile or e-inspection for our towing program. And we recently completed that. So that means that inspectors can be on site and collect information regarding the inspection, and the information is automatically transferred to our database. It saves the inspectors having to go back to their desk and data enter information they've collected. For this program, you're brand new to us, so you're a little bit down the list of programs that we're going to be moving to the e-inspection, but you are on the list, and it is a goal for the division to be able to perform all of our inspections electronically. Also, you'll see recent accomplishments and current projects. And I'm glad Cam 2 is here. One of the things you'll see here is that she has done a lot of work in outreach after the hurricane in Houston to work with our hurricane relief team here at TDLR to provide information to the public, to licensees, and it could also be other projects that we're working on. And you'll see later that we're going to be working with you on creating a checklist, and we'll be able to provide updates to the advisory board on that project. And of course, implementation of new programs. So here we are working to implement the massage therapy inspection function at TDLR. Also recently, we've been working to hire 3 new inspectors. We performed interviews in the DFW area at our Fort Worth office, and we're going to hire 3 inspectors after the first of the year. We'll see if we get approval and all of that works out. The other thing we provide during the advisory board meetings is a list of the most common violations that we find while we're performing the inspections. It's information for you, but it's also for the public. We'll post it on our website. It'll help establishments to, keep on the lookout for common violations that are found and try to avoid them. We update that quarterly so that we're able to provide, a good sampling of the kinds of things that you find while you're doing inspections. We've also got a sample of selection checklist. And this is the kind of thing that we're going to work with the inspections work group on. We've already got a draft for the massage therapy program, but we want to work with you guys to make sure we're understanding the significance of all of the different laws and rules that would be applicable during an establishment inspection. And we'll work with the exams and education group. So when there is any crossover, we are trying to perform the same inspection when we're looking at the same kind of situation, right? So we want to be as standard as possible and as fair as possible. Another thing that you might note on this sample checklist is the DTE over on the right-hand side. This stands for direct to enforcement. So this is something that Christina mentioned. Not all of the violations or that may be found would be enforcement worthy, right? Some things might be a violation, but it can be fixed easily, quickly, maybe even while the inspector is there. Other things, are going to be determined to be more serious, and they're going to require the inspector to not only note them, but also write a report, collect evidence, and send that report to our enforcement division. Christina mentioned we're 40% of their workload. So those are the things that we want to send to them. We don't want to send to them the things that are minor or that, really just need more education for the facilities. The last page we have is a collection of our, a sample, this is from cosmetology, of how we track the number of inspections that we perform. We'll have one that will be broken down for massage establishments, and we'll provide that to you during each of your advisory board meetings.
Yay.
If you have any questions?
Any questions, comments? Well, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate learning about that.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And the last of the staff reports would be from the licensing division.
Good morning, Chairman Lauterstein and Advisory Board members. I'm Joyce Hennington, Licensing Manager for the Massage Therapy Program. It's good to see all of you. I'm looking forward to working with you. I think I met most of you at the Advisory Board Summit. Okay, the report that I provided for you was the report that we shared at the Advisory Board Summit, so I provide the report again for those people that missed the summit. The report is an overview of the licensing division. It was put together by my director, who is here today, Dee McEachin. So if I do anything wrong, if I get out of line, just see her and she'll put me back in line. Okay, my team has done a lot of work this summer getting prepared for the transition. In preparation, we've had numerous meetings with various divisions within TDLR. We worked on revising and creating new forms, which we worked on those forms for numerous hours. And I am asking for all the massage therapists applicants for therapy instructor or establishment to please use the new forms. In fact, yesterday I received an application on an old form. We're going to keep all the information, but we contacted the person and asked them to fill out one of the new forms for us and just email it or fax it to us. This summer, we sent staff over to DSHS for training, and I want to say the staff was so accommodating in getting us trained. It was a very trying process. We had to learn a new database, and this database isn't as automated as the database that we have now. I have a young, innovative team, and they believe in innovation, automation. So this isn't going over too well with them because we have a lot of paperwork. We had to box up a lot of applications. Then we had to find real estate to put these boxes. But anyway, I've encouraged the team, and they know that TDLR is forever changing, and they know things will get better. So they're just working hard to keep these licenses up, to get everything out in a timely manner. Okay, I also provided you today with the number of licenses that we have issued, massage therapy license that we have issued since November 1st. That was the sheet of paper that I gave you earlier.
Gotcha.
Also want to say, if you hear rumors about things that have changed, you know, they did this at DSHS, but they're going to do this at TDLR, and I'm talking about unfavorable things, don't panic. Because we had a situation, Mr. Rust, someone told him that we would not accept the transcripts from the applicants. We would only accept them from the school. Okay, that is the case with a couple of our programs, but not with massage therapy. So if you hear these rumors and if it's something that's upsetting, please contact us so we can squash the rumors or verify the rumors. And then we verify them and say it's true, then you can go all out in panic mode. But most of the time, these rumors aren't true, so please contact us. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I work with a couple of other advisory boards, and I love my advisory boards. And I get along well. I think I work well. You can talk to Ms. Connor. Maybe she can vouch for that. I do. Okay. Anyway, we're going to make mistakes, but we're going to learn from our mistakes. So we're going to fall down. When we fall down, we get up. So I just want to say I'm here for all of you guys, and I look forward to working with you. Any questions?
One question, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Yes.
Hi, Russell Rust. Just in our industry, we have people that don't quite believe in automation and are not going to convert over. Is there a physical address that one may drop off an
Yes.
application?
Yes, I'll make sure you get that. I'll give it to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Or should I say it now over?
Say it now, but also, it's also on our webpage, on the, when it says contact information, it has the email
That physical
addresses,
address on there,
as well
yes,
as the
sir.
physical address that they can drop it off, but I think she's gonna,
Yes, the physical address is downtown. First of all, let me preface this by saying you will find nowhere to park. Okay, so if you want to take the chance, I'd ride the bus, okay? Fly in, then take a bus from the
Lyft.
airport downtown.
well, but Joyce,
So
one of
the-
our newer programs, Transportation Network companies, they can also utilize
Oh,
those
that's true,
services.
that's true. Anyway, the address is 920 Colorado, and it is adjacent, well, across the streets from the governor's mansion. It's at the corner of 10th and Colorado.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lauderstein.
Oh,
I always
sure.
told him, I'm going to say his name a lot of because it just rolls off your tongue.
I think water ski will be quite close. All right. So we've had some great staff reports. Thank you so much. We're really impressed with the quality, the informativeness, the friendliness, and the efficiency. It's just something that is really a step up. So I'd like to suggest that we take a brief break, and what, 15 minutes, would you say? Okay,
Absolutely.
yeah. Let's take a 15-minute break, and I look forward to seeing you after that back here. Thank you. caring for their clients.
The new rules and regulations look like.
Yay. Law and order. Right. So thanks so much for your patience and attentiveness during the process. And the next thing on the agenda is to have a discussion and overview of the rules at 16 Texas Administrative Code. And that would be, there's some squealing in the audience. I believe Colleen Tran. Do I have a nominee for Colleen Tran?
I believe she'll be
I
on her
believe
way
in her.
very shortly.
I think the squeal was just a precursor to what's to come. No, I'm just kidding.
Apparently it's me.
Oh, my God.
So good morning, board members. Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so excited to have an advisory board for this program, and I wanted to thank you guys for your service. So we're going to go through the massage therapy rules overview first. I've provided you a slide. Oh, I handed you the physical sheet on.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
no problem. So a little bit about the rules and the overview. Just looking at them, my goal was to keep them substantively the same. Let's do a little bit of reorganization, hopefully to make them easier to read, keep them the same, keep everything simplified, and reduce kind of the number overall verbiage that needs to tell you exactly what it is, so you don't have to sift. You get a simple things that you need to turn in and not a bunch of explanation. Rules were, for the most part, verbatim from the DSHS rules, and as you can see from the chart, we're on the far right-hand side. If it's blank, then most likely it's almost exactly verbatim, and if I needed to change department or agency or remove some excess references or anything, then that's really all that was done, then they're exactly the same. So you'll also not see provisions occupations code are enabling that, which is 51, and rules which include exist in our overarching Chapter 51 and our rules Chapter 60, so they won't be repeated in your individual program rules. So if we want to go through just quickly, I'm going to go through the chart in chunks. So one, it just lays out the authorities in your rules, and it didn't exist in the DSHS rules, so that's why in that chart it'll say there was nothing equivalent. The definitions are at 117.2. They're verbatim from 300, except for, and this is an example of what the chart will tell you. So the amended terms are the commissioner, department, and director to reflect our commissioner, our department, and our director. Subchapter C has all of your therapist licensing requirements. And I've tried to remove things that were either no longer necessary. So there was some transition language back from 2009 that was still in the rules. There were some provisions that just kind of repeated in a few sentences. So I just and like I tried to just make a list. So when you look at your requirements, it would tell you 1 through 7. These are the things you need to do. Everything in one place. Subchapter D are all of your continuing education requirements. There was in 117.33 and 117.34 for reporting and the approval. There was some addition of some audited processing language from our E&E section. And if you notice, you have to maintain your records for 5 years now. So those were changes and additions because those reflect our audit process that we needed to put into the rules so that we could work. And we did not do it similarly to DSHS. Subchapter E is everything you need for obtaining your instructor license. And as you can see, it's all the same as it was before. Subchapter F are for school requirements. And this is I've different areas. Notice that something about the schools moved everything that was school related or requirement into so you'd only need to be. We've also, if you look for and you no longer need an inspection report to turn in. So there's some simple we're going to need. So we looked at some of those requirements, and that's not something that we normally would collect for our schools, and so we went ahead and removed some of that burden. School section is very long. Subchapter G is for the licensed establishments. Similarly, a lot of the language was repeated from either Chapter 60, moved, when things in rule or in statute say that something has to be in writing, we have to literally write stuff and send it in. So those are some of kind of administrative burdens that we're trying to move away from in our rules and our statutes just to alleviate some of that burden. And then there was a lot of information of exactly everything that you need to have in the form, in the rule. And so we've pulled that out because those are procedural processes for us, and they shouldn't be ruled because if it's something that needs to change in the form and how you apply, and we need your email address now, and that's not in the rule. We have to go through a whole rule change. You need your name, your address, and now your email address. And so instead of just putting that form stuff in the rules, we've removed all that out because that's just procedural. It's not actually to the function of your license. And then subchapter H, your code of ethics, all of that has been unchanged. For the advertising section of that, though, we did clean up some redundancies. We went through them. It was a pretty long section about your advertising rules, and so we've just kind of cleaned up and put them, we've shortened them a little bit, not entirely short, but some of the stuff was a little repetitive, and so we brought it all up and together. Subchapter I, fees, and J are your enforcement provisions. We did add CE providers for whom you could file a complaint with us against. That wasn't in your rules originally. And anything in those DSHS sections for penalties and enforcement that were already redundant with our 51 were removed, and we've added our TDLR standard overarching language there. So hopefully we get to move forward with just the chapter 117.100, but if you needed to go back and see where it was or what it did look like or what the change was, then you have that reference for the .140 rules.
Great. Thank you.
One question, sir.
Sure.
Please.
Russell Rust. We had spoke about an issue prior that you've took care of for me. But there was one question in the rule and how the end of that rule stated of felony. Is that something that is a board, or is that just something I don't want to say a typo, or is that just something that can be corrected? At the end of that, 117, I'm sorry, I could not pull my document up on
okay, we will
without
take
the
a look.
Wi-Fi in here, which I don't have. Anyway, it was the last portion of the license, being able to apply for a license with a criminal conviction. As you read in the law, we've already discussed, you've discussed with me the changes in that, but at the very end of the rule, it just has a comma and says or felony. So
Okay.
that kind of took away the meaning that had prior by throwing in or felony. I'm sorry.
No,
it's
no, it's okay.
117,
If you guys would bear me
15,
to look.
51, 52.
We'll find out. It is not a big deal.
But the law is stated, but then the rule kind of, that's why I'm asking,
see.
is that just a, and I don't want to say a typo, is that just something that doesn't have to be discussed, that can just be, Remy? But as you read the rule to the very end, it says of or felony, so it kind of takes away the meaning of the previous.
I'm going to call on my team behind me and
That's
see if
okay.
anybody knows where I should be flipping to. I got and
Was that
it was
No.
relationship for
denial of license? But the statute is correct. It's when it gets to the rule and how that rule is explained.
So are you massage school
No,
enrollment
not school.
procedure?
I'm about eligibility for a license, denial of a massage therapist.
Yeah. So let me see.
In school rules, you have to include a statement saying that they're ineligible, but that's not true anymore.
So this one, so what is this?
I think this.
So if the section is 117.62, that section reads, and I'm flipping like
The
crazy.
statutes or rules that you're
I'm
addressing?
looking in rules.
Okay.
So 117.62
Oh, no, you're right. That's what I think.
reads currently, if you're looking, okay, so a statement that the act sets out that a person is ineligible for a license,
Yes.
and then you have the person convicted, and then until the 5th for date for the conviction of misdemeanor involving moral turpitude or a felony?
Yes.
Okay. In our next agenda item, you'll see that disappear.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I was real confused.
Please forgive me
No,
on the
it's all right.
process.
No, no, no.
I know I brought that to y'all's attention
Yeah.
already, so.
So
I didn't
you and
know
I
it
had
was gonna
gone
be-
through the statute together, and that
Yes.
did come out in the statute. So what we're going to do after we go through this review is we'll go through the rule changes that need to happen because of HB 4007, and that section comes out because it's no longer in statute.
Okay, and I didn't know if that was a process, or is that
Yeah.
literally just a removal because of not stating what the statute says?
We
So
will go
that's
through-
why I was asking.
Yeah, we will need to follow the statute because that's what the statute says, and we will go through the process of removing it in rule. But the statute will always trump the rules regardless.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis and Russ, it's part of catching up. You know, imagine that the law is passed and it happens beforehand, and then we go through the process of catching our rules up to it. However, that statute exists and it drives. It drives unless the statute has language that says something to the effect that the department shall develop rules to implement X.
Okay.
And now that X will take time, and what we develop will drive it. But in most cases, when that's removed, that's law. The moment
Okay.
that bill is effective, you'll see rules catching up to that.
All right, thank you.
It's a great
Thank you.
question. I love how you had Colleen trying to figure it out. She's like, what's going on? What's going on? And Colette's over here helping out. And I'm like, man, she's living into our core values of teamwork. I'm digging this.
I was like, help!
Oh, I see.
117.62. 16, yeah. Your next agenda.
Oh, boy. I'm so sure. Paul Stone, you mentioned the vote. I want to get some clarification On the fire safety, I believe currently we have to, each year, we have the city fire marshal, representative of that office come in and do an inspection, paper, and we keep it in our records. Required or?
You'll still require whatever requirements for you are. You don't need to send it into us.
I understand. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And you are? Paul Stone. Okay.
And Brian Francis, Mr. Stone, that's part of our philosophy. If you are having if there is another regulatory body that has primary jurisdiction over something and you're meeting that requirement, we always have the ability to go and check that. But you shouldn't always have to tell us and tell them and tell the next person. And you'll see that throughout the rules that we tried to streamline some of the tells what you already told someone else that you're doing stuff.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep going?
Please.
All right. So we're going to the next agenda item. Agenda item
G.
G for our proposed rules for implementing House Bill 4007. So on page 34 of your packet on your devices will be the beginning of the proposed rule packet. So these proposed rules are only to implement the changes that occurred during this past legislative session in House Bill 4007, which of course created our advisory board and made a few other tiny tweaks. So this is in our process to catch our rules up to what is now required by statute. And it's our first blush into rulemaking.
Page 34. Ah, thank you so much. Go ahead. Thank you so much.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through, I'll explain to you the change that's occurred, and these are you'll only see the rules that have a change in them. And I'll explain the change, and I'll explain why we need to do it. We can discuss and anything that we need to do, and we can move on, and hopefully at the end we'll have a recommendation to have it published to the Texas Register for some public comment.
Mm-hmm.
So on page 1, we've added a definition for applicant to the rules because in chapter 450 of the Texas Occupation Code over our says that you have to conduct on the applicant, and that was not a rule, not distribute rules at DHS. So we are catching up how the statute us to do background. Under number 3. Questions? Page 2, we've added subchapter B. If you notice from our crosswalk, it was missing. So this was left open for the hope of an advisory board, and he verbatim from statute. On page section 117.10, it's new chapter B report did not rule previously, though 4007 from statute. Next, to 20 on to for the Python. And back to me. Not already in here for the for a massage therapy instructor, so we've added that language here.
Question, please.
Yes, sir.
On the Russell Rust, on the criminal background check, is there a standard of how far-reaching that criminal background check is, depending, is it just a Texas record, or is that a national record, or is that, how is that determined?
I'm looking back there at enforcement. I'm hoping somebody will help me. I've got Christina.
From the top of the mountain, Christina Kaiser.
Oh.
Man, it's usually a trumpet sounding when she moves in.
The nature of the criminal background check can be established in the statute. I don't recall that there's anything specific in your statute that states whether it's a fingerprint type background check that would include, a national check. So in the absence of any specific language, it's going to be a state of Texas only background check run through DPS.
Okay, our
And
industry has taken a hit on some certain matters. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but we don't want to call it passing the trash, but somebody comes today, I think we need to look.
Did just in the trash.
Hey,
I think you just did that.
Thank you for that clarification.
So I'll just add to that real briefly that, one avenue to consider is that someone from the industry would approach the legislature and request a change to the statute to require specifically a national background check. But in the meantime, an applicant who comes from out of state will be subject to the DPS background check, but they are also obligated to reveal any criminal history that they have to us. And I know that's an imperfect system, but our experience has actually shown that the majority of people are honest about their criminal background. And so that would include, what they reveal to us would include anything from another state. And then, if that's forwarded over to enforcement, we can do a full investigation and contact the other states and get the full skinny on it. So.
Okay, we actually had that. We'll have to approach that in legislation again. We had it this year, and it did never make it to committee. So,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
And I'll also add, Brian Francis, is when we go through the strategic planning process in the spring, and we ask the questions of what can we do better, what do we do well, and what change would you make in the law, statute, or rules, that's going to be an opportunity for the industry to really express to us that this particular issue is important, this one's not. So there'll be plenty of opportunity, and we were able to make a lot of substantive changes and bring it to the attention of the legislature during House Bill 4007. I think you guys saw how well that process worked.
Good. Thank you.
And then we're on page 4 of the rules. In section 1, the massage license requirements for the massage and the statutory requirement not exist there. On page 5, that was my coworker's hyphen for 500 hours. In section 117.62, we updated the language to teach. That was the language. There was nowhere else in the rules that the term pupil was used, but student was used, so we're just making that streamlined. And then A is adjusted to match the statute, and if you'll notice, Mr. S, subsection B is proposed to be removed. Again, to match 4007 changes to that section. On page 6, and the final part of that, in that section on the top of the page, number 4, again, it's just the 500-hour change here. The massage establishment application in .80 is to add the application criminal background check there as well as for statutory requirement. And .82, this was just a, it said promotions, and we changed it to promotion because the term is promotion of prostitution, and that's just to clarify, removing the S. And then .111 in the administrative penalties and section section, we added the statutory language for Chapter 28 Penal Code and then Chapter 43 from statute. So those are all House Bill 4007 changes.
Questions or comments there? Good. Well, then I would like to move that these rules be published in the Texas Register. May I have a second for that motion?
Second that motion.
Yes.
You can make that motion.
Yes.
But sometimes it's better to allow your group to make the motion and someone second it. Or you
Please.
just call for a motion.
I'll call
That's
for a
typically how we
motion.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion is to move these rules to be published in the Texas Register. Thank you very much.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate it. Colleen, outstanding job.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, as you know, the rules will be published, as Colleen said, 30-day comment period. When we come back to your next meeting, we will bring back all the comments related to that, give you an opportunity to go back and forth on those issues, to make changes, may say that's perfect, and then you'll make another vote at that time to recommend adoption of the rule of the commission.
Okay, great. So that'll be an agenda item for next time.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So, as many of you know, some of the work of the advisory board is to form work groups to work on certain realms, such as we've been introduced to. And so at this time, I believe I would just like to ask the advisory board members if they have any particular preferences, and we'd like to constitute those groups so we have a chance to get to work. And let's see, what do we got there? Okay, great. And, yes. Let me ask, first of all, do any of the board members have any questions about what's the scope of what each of these groups do? I had one question about the standard of care work group and exactly what it is that they look at. So I'd be curious about that, and if any of you also would be curious to have any explanations for what the other work groups do, I'm sure we could hear from whoever would be best to speak on that. Maybe Tamala, or?
Christina, will you describe the body of work that will happen with enforcement? I know you touched on it briefly in your report. And Dee Dee and Ray, we'll call you
So
the
for the
same for yours.
For the enforcement work group, largely what we're going to be needing the work group's help with are those two policy documents that I talked about earlier, the conviction guidelines, where we see the categories that did not see his license. That's application coming already, so that's the most. And then the second thing is the penalty matrix that lifts all the potential violations out of the statutes and rules and then classifies them according to how serious and assigns penalty class. Basis, but from time to time we may need to revisit one of those things, or on the odd occasion we may need to revisit or take up some unique enforcement related question, and we would probably reconstitute the work group on an as needed basis.
Great, that's very useful to know. Thanks so much.
Mr. Chairman, that particular work group will do the heaviest lifting and has the most sense of urgency now.
Great.
So the work is going to be immediate, and it's going to be very involved. It's a great group to work with. Christina does a good job of leading those discussions, and her team has refined the criminal conviction guidelines and the penalty matrices over the last couple of years, and it's just a fantastic process. But you're going to look at every rule and every statutory provision and make a determination of, is this a $500 fine or a $2,000 fine? Second time they do it, should it be a suspension or revocation? So it's really the heart of the issue is when we have those violators, how do we handle that?
Great.
How do we bring them back in the fold of doing it right, or how do we let them know that this is not acceptable?
Right.
Really heavy lifting on that.
And to be clear to the board members, there will, I gather, always be one or more representatives from TDLR involved in these work groups, so it's not just us who are making the
we'll be coordinating
advice.
those meetings. Christina's group will lead the discussion. They'll coordinate with the members.
Yeah.
When we're going to meet, you can meet by teleconference. You can come in physically. They'll provide the base documents for your review. They'll lead you through the discussion. You'll also have folks from compliance and general counsel's office maybe sitting in those conversations as well. You will not be just thrown on that ice island. You're going to have a lot of help and assistance, rich assistance in that. So we'll have
Great.
Ray, then Dee Dee, and then Stephen to lay out standard of practice or care work group.
Could I ask a question?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sorry. We have 7, Paul Stone, we have 7 members right now. We can't have a quorum, so I'm assuming there'll be 3 members. Is that correct?
The quorum is still going to constitute, it's 5. They got a 9-member board, right? So it's 4.
We can have up to 4.
The quorum is 5, so the work groups will consist of no more than 4 people.
So the quorum's based on full
On- yeah,
membership
what
of
the
9
statute
members?
establishes. Yes,
Okay. And so will we, since there's only 7 active members, will we be on 2 of these work groups?
You guys are probably going to be on multiple
Yeah.
work groups.
Mhm.
Correct. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
At least 2.
Thanks.
And Mr. Chairman, as Tamla reminded me, there's a strong possibility that we'll have some new members added next Friday, so you may want to save a seat or 2 for those folks, knowing, again, we have a peace officer that's going to be in that group and those sort of things. So
Yeah.
just kind of keep that in mind.
I am, thank you. Okay, great.
Ray Pizarro, Director of Education Examination. So with the E&E work group, as Brian mentioned, we're going to be part of it. We'll call the meeting once we write down all of the participants and who the folks are going to be a part of that, and we'll convene the work group. Most of the E&E work group we're going to be looking at subchapter D and F. You're looking at continuing education, schools, so there's a lot of things in there that you guys may see that change may be needed. When you get into the work group, and Brian mentioned earlier, there's going to be a lot of discussion. You'll hear discussions from us as well. It's discussions from the department trying to understand the rules. I don't want you guys to think that we are making changes or we're trying to drive any one of the members to do one way or another. It's just kind of, we need to understand what this means and why is it there and do we need it? You know, things like that. And so just be prepared, don't be defensive. This is what we need to do and we need to go through the exercise because then we'll share with you how our operations and E&E is working. We'll look at these rules and we'll tell you, for example, well, this is the way we review the apps and the curriculum, and this is the way we do school inspections. The rule says this. There's some discrepancy. What are we doing here? Do we need to change our ways? Do we need to change the rule? So you're going to have that opportunity to look at those things that way.
Great.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee McKeisher. I'm the Director of Licensing, and we're going to ask you to meet when we have licensing questions. For example, the first thing we're looking to look at is the transcript evaluation process. That also is going to tie real closely in with education examination, too. So for those members who get to serve on 2, those may be 2 real good ones to serve on together because there may be some crossover there, and we can apply the same knowledge. That way we won't avoid quorum issues and walking quorums when you have to transfer knowledge from one group to the other.
I hear you.
But basically, yeah, we're just going to call you whenever we need help with licensing you want to tackle at the forefront.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tanya Guthrow, Director of Field Operations. I just wanted to point out that the licensing work group, if you look on your agenda, also includes inspections. So when you're appointing people to that work group, keep that in mind. So we may be calling you, like we talked about, to work on review of the inspection checklist.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So can you give me just a little bit more information
course.
about what the work group would do in conjunction with the standard of care?
Right. We are drafting right now an inspection checklist that inspectors will use when they're out performing inspections at establishments. We may go ahead and work in conjunction, like we talked about, with exams in education during those meetings to ensure consistency across the board. But that would be the main fun of any meeting we would have.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Clear. Thanks so much.
Sure. No.
All right. So I would like to ask the board members to write down.
Mr. Chairman, we have one more
Yeah,
group,
oh,
the standard of
oh,
care. Work
oh,
group.
I thought
Stephen Mills.
that's what we just did.
No, you just you did the second part of licensing.
Ah.
Licensing, general licensing elements, but also.
And drafting the inspection checklist. Okay, I wasn't
We did
clear
that on
on.
purpose to throw you off. Mr.
Ah.
Chairman. You don't get off easy today.
All right, well, thank you. I'm on my toes now. Okay, cool.
Thank you. Stephen Mills, Medical and Health Professions Section Manager. Our team supports the standard of care work groups of the advisory board, informally known sometimes as standards of practice. A standard of care or practice work group typically looks at concerns or issues that relate to license holders, consumers, various scope and extent of activities that may be authorized by the license, or sometimes matters that don't fit neatly within the scope of the other work groups. The meetings are typically, as Brian mentioned, we handle the logistics. Yvonne is our lead for these meetings, and many times you'll see me involved in those, as well as our general counsel.
Okay, are we all clear on that then?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to be recognized.
Please.
Russell Rust, I have one question regarding this process. In a work group, is that just strictly TDLR members and advisory board, or will there be experts brought in from the profession to actually be part of these groups?
It's going to be the work group, advisory board members, and TLR staff.
Okay, thank you.
The advisory board members are not restricted from bringing material in there that they think could assist in the conversation and the discussion, so that's an avenue. You're a conduit. You're a conduit for those experts to provide information to you to bring into those conversations as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think at this point then, I would ask the board members to give me a piece of paper indicating which 2 or 3 work groups you might be most interested in working with, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with those today, and I'll kind of collate those.
Mr. Chairman, as they gather the information for you, we can take a 5-minute break, 10-minute break, and Tamala, Nick, and
that would be great.
Carl
Yeah,
and I
it
will
deserves some
go through
thought.
it.
Thanks so much. Okay, great. Just hand them over to me, and we'll take a. Yeah. 2 or 3 groups each that you would be interested or willing to work with.
I know me too.
The multi-matrix, there's something already that they have, right? I mean, do you guys have
So,
an
but I think
idea?
they need to revise it.
So you wouldn't just be coming out of thin air with
That's
something, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Because TDLR had some things.
Okay.
Which one are you most passionate? Yeah.
No.
To. Is it in our work thing? Is it these two?
So I just put these 2 because if these 2 are going to be out for that, do those 2. Does that make sense?
Those 2 meaning this, 1 and 4.
Because they were saying that these 2.
down here. No. I'm on 3. One person be on 3. I volunteer to do something. So, hello. Hello, everybody.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian Francis. It kind of has the feel of the NFL draft or something. You know, people are about to get selected.
That's
First
right.
round choice for enforcement work group and all that good stuff. It's exciting.
That's right. Terribly exciting.
Terribly exciting.
Well, I actually am serious.
No, you are.
So, shall I state then who's on the work groups
Yes,
to the
please.
public?
This is
Okay,
yours.
great. So, let me just say we've had some great advice and thoughtfulness in creating these work groups. And so, to let you know, the enforcement work group will consist of Russell Russ, Carol Willis, Karen Vasquez. Maybe if you'll raise your hands, just so people can be reminded. Russell Russ, Carol Willis, and Karen Vasquez, and a peace officer who will be named later as part of the advisory board. The licensing work group will be myself, Caroline Guerin, Susan Sparks, and Paul Stone. And the examination work group will be myself, Carolyn Guerin, Paul Stone, and Russell Rust. And the standard of care work group will be Karen Vasquez, Susan Sparks. Public member, we have yet to have one more public member named to the board, and myself. So, wish us luck and pluck, as they say.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I just want to remind the members, this is Brian Francis. So you may recall from the training that we had at the summit about the walking quorum. So if you're in multiple work groups, the conversation, say you're in licensing but also in enforcement, you cannot take the conversations from, well, in the licensing work group, one of the changes we wanted to make was X, Y, and Z. You don't want to walk those work group conversations over because we have the potential of increasing the, past the quorum or moving to 5 members. So that's something we'll just be very careful about. You're going to get a lot of great assistance from our team out here helping you with that to make sure that it's what we're talking about in front of us is exactly what we're talking about and not having the conversations back and forth.
Great. I want to remind us all, because I was reminded, that people may address concerns to us via Facebook or something, and the best policy for the board members is when they're asking us about TDLR is to refer them to TDLR rather than answer them with what may or may not be correct information on our part. So we should refrain from representing TDLR's position on any given thing. Cool. So let's see here. What comes next? I know. Give me 1 second with all these papers here. Right. So how do we handle the recommendations for agenda items for the next meeting? I know we had said there'd be public discussion of public comments with regard to the rules. There would be reports from advisory board, work groups. Other things that should be added to the agenda?
Presiding Officer, Mary Winston, forgive my
Thank you.
voice. We discussed, and you've appointed the work groups, and before the next meeting, we'll give the work groups time to meet on various issues with the staff, and there should be some reports back to the full body for the work groups for the next meeting.
Great. So, any other questions or comments with respect to the agenda and how we doing? Let me see the second
Presiding
page
Officer,
there.
one more comment.
Please.
I wanted, Mary Winston again, I wanted the board members to know, and I'm sorry, really don't have a voice today. I wanted the board members to know that if you have other agenda items that come up between this meeting and our next meeting, please contact Tamala, and we'll try to get those agenda items available for the next meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, do we have a public discussion of the dates, times, and location for the next board meeting? Is that appropriate at this time?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. So the driver for the date will be the publication of the rules. So they go in on a Monday and get published Fridays from that. And so we will probably have an early February meeting.
I'm sorry?
A mid-February meeting.
Mhm.
And my question, first of all, to the members, do you have a preference of the day of the week?
One question, sir. Remember, our busiest time is Valentine's Day, so whatever the 14th falls, nowhere near it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
So a late February meeting, that makes sense. And that's so good. I mean, with our cosmetology group, we found out the painful way when we started scheduling meetings on Fridays. And that's their big day. So we'll keep 14th off the record, kind of around
Okay.
that. But is there another preference for the day of the week? Or
I have no preference, but it would be better for me if we met the 19th or later that
Okay.
particular month.
One question on that as well. Are these meetings ever allowed to be held, let's say, at 1 o'clock as opposed to 8 for those that travel?
Absolutely.
I stay the night before.
Absolutely. And
That
in fact,
is just a suggestion. Doesn't have to do this right one, but going forward, I didn't know if there was a requirement for them to be first thing in the morning.
absolutely not. In fact, we'll talk about that now, that when we get a general idea, so maybe the 26th or the 27th of February are the dates we're looking at.
Either one.
And do y'all get every government holiday, such as President's Day and so forth?
There's a few more that we actually create as well.
How innovative.
Thank you very much. So,
Is
Mr.
that
Chairman,
from that Office of Innovation? Is
That's
that where
exactly
that's coming?
right. So does the 26th or 27th work?
Anybody have any preference
I do.
for that?
So Monday or
Caroline
Tuesday?
Guerin, 26 would be better for me.
Okay.
On Monday.
Monday, the 26th?
26th, and it sounds like maybe a 1 o'clock start time?
Okay.
Paul, on my anniversary is February 26th.
Oh, man.
I'm going to need a massage after this meeting.
Man.
I'm just joking. It is my anniversary, but that's fine.
Oh, my. That's what So we're going to have another vacancy for a member beginning on the 27th of February, and so just keep an eye out over that posting. Brian Francis. Well, Tim, can we go?
It's going to be here.
All right. Is that set then? Everybody happy with that?
Okay, Ms. Stone, are you okay? Because I really am worried.
No,
now.
absolutely, I'm okay. It is my anniversary, but there's going to be conflicts. If we just threw it around to everybody, there would be.
How many years are we talking about?
I don't know. It'll be the last one. Let me see. It'll be no. Mine's easy to keep up with because I was married in 2000. So if I know the year, it'll be 18.
Okay, you're good.
Okay.
So we also have the prospect of having March 1st or 2nd, also Monday and Tuesdays. Oh, Thursday and Friday. I'm sorry.
Friday.
No, Paul Stone. The 26th is fine. If
Okay.
that works for everybody.
All right. Well,
Bring her with.
okay.
Okay. All right. Well, that covers the meeting. This is the first meeting of the advisory board. It really is historic for our field, and we're all excited to be part of it and working with TDLR. May we all learn from each other and grow the field and grow sanity in our world. We appreciate it, and health. So thanks so much, everybody, for coming. I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
I'd like to make a motion
Oh, you make a motion,
to
Russell.
adjourn the meeting.
Yes. Do I have a second to
I'll
that?
second that.
And
All in favor?
All in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Done.
Remember, we'll have our staff.